Managing a database can sometimes feel like a total grind. But what if your database could pretty much manage itself? Today, we're going to crack open the power of automation in MySQL. The goal? To save you a ton of time, get rid of those pesky errors, and totally transform your workflow. Let's get into it.
So let me ask you this, and it's a simple but really powerful question. Are you spending your days manually cleaning up data, auditing changes, and scheduling routine jobs? If you're nodding along right now, yeah, you're working for your database. Well, today, we're going to flip that script.
Here's our game plan for today. First, we'll dive into what I call the manual data headache. Then, we'll get to the good stuff. 4 amazing tools to fix it. We're talking about an automatic rule enforcer, a set-and-forget scheduler, smart ways to delete data, and finally, how to grab the master controls for your database.
Okay, so let's start with the core problem here. Managing your data by hand isn't just slow, it's a huge risk. I mean, every single manual entry is a potential typo, right? Every deletion could be a mistake. This doesn't just eat up your time. It creates these hidden costs in debugging and data integrity that can absolutely cripple a project down the line.
So, how do we start fixing this? Well, our first tool is the MySQL Trigger. The best way to think about this is like an automatic rule enforcer, a guardian that makes sure your most important business rules are followed 24/7 without you ever having to lift a finger.
So what exactly is a trigger? Well, it's basically a set of instructions you give the database. You're saying, hey, whenever this specific thing happens to this specific table, I want you to automatically go and do that. It's kind of like having an automated auditor watching over your data around the clock.
Let's make this real with a classic example. So, imagine this is your customers table. You see Jane Smith there? She's now an inactive customer. Standard procedure is to delete the row, but here's the catch. You absolutely have to keep a record of that deletion for your audit trail. So how do you guarantee that happens every single time?
Now, the old way, you just run a simple delete command, right? And on the surface, that's all that happens. The row gets removed. But because we've got a trigger set up, something really powerful is happening behind the scenes.
And here is the magic. Look at that. The row is gone from the main customers table. Sure, but a perfect copy instantly appeared in our deleted_customers audit table. You didn't have to run a second command. There's zero chance of forgetting. The trigger handled the whole thing. This is exactly what we mean by guaranteed consistency.
But, of course, it's not all sunshine and roses. With this power comes a really critical trade-off. On the plus side, triggers are amazing for centralizing your business logic. But the downside is that this logic is now kind of hidden inside the database, which can turn debugging into a total nightmare. If something weird happens, you might not even realize a trigger was what caused it.
And you gotta know, specifically in MySQL, there are a few gotchas. You can't directly raise errors from inside a trigger, which makes handling errors a little tricky. They're also not great for bulk operations. Think about it. If you update 1,000,000 rows, that trigger is going to fire 1,000,000 times, and that can just grind your system to a halt.
Okay, so triggers are awesome for reacting to things as they happen. But what about all those jobs you need to run on a schedule? Things like nightly cleanups or weekly reports. For that, we need a totally different tool. And that's where MySQL events come in. It's your database's very own built-in scheduler.
Getting this up and running is actually super easy. It's just 3 steps. First, you have to flip the main switch to turn on the global event scheduler. It's usually off by default, so that's a crucial first step. Second, you just define what you want it to do and tell it when to run. And finally, you can manage it whenever you want. Turn it on, turn it off, or get rid of it as your needs change.
And you've basically got 2 flavors to choose from. One-time events are exactly what they sound like. Fire and forget tasks, like running a cleanup script in 1 hour from now. Recurring events, though, are your reliable workhorses. They're perfect for daily maintenance, like archiving old records every morning at 1 a.m. while you're fast asleep. All right, so we've covered auditing and scheduling. Now let's switch gears and talk about something we all have to do: getting rid of data. You've got 2 main tools for this job: delete and truncate. And trust me, choosing the right one is absolutely critical.
This table just breaks it down perfectly. Think of delete as your surgical scalpel. It's a bit slower because it removes rows one by one and logs everything. And this is key, it will fire your triggers. Truncate, on the other hand, that's the big red button, the fast reset. It's instant, it resets your IDs, but it completely bypasses triggers and it's much harder to recover from. So what's the takeaway?
Use delete when you need precision and you care about the audit trail. Use truncate when you just need to wipe the slate clean fast.
So, we've automated our actions. But what about fine-tuning the actual environment where all this stuff happens? For our last section, we're going to learn how to master the database control panel by looking at system variables and the super useful distinct keyword.
So, what are system variables? Honestly, the best way to think about them is as the master control panel for your whole MySQL server. They let you tweak basically everything, from the max number of connections to the default language. These are the fundamental knobs and dials you use to shape how your server behaves.
And it's really important to know they come in two different scopes. Global variables affect the entire server for every single user. You change one of these, you're changing it for everyone, so it's a big deal. Session variables, though, are temporary and only apply to your current connection. And this is so useful because it lets you safely play around or optimize a specific query without messing things up for anyone else. And for our last little trick of the day, a simple but incredibly powerful tool for tidying up your data, the distinct keyword. You know that feeling when you run a query and you just get this long, messy list full of duplicates? Well, all you have to do is pop the word distinct into your select statement. It instantly filters out all that noise and gives you a clean list of only the unique values. Simple as that. So when you boil it all down, the message is pretty clear, right? Automation, using tools like triggers and events, combined with smart data management, is what really separates a basic setup from a professional, rock-solid database. So, I'm going to leave you with a challenge. Now that you have these new tools in your toolkit, think about it. What is the first boring, repetitive task you're going to hand off to your database and never, ever do by hand again?